This is an uninspiring hire. Aaron Glenn is getting all the pressure now to make this defense work because he's taking over as the play caller. And ultimately, Frankie, I think he knows he's on the hot seat, and like you said, he has to win some football games in this next year. The New York Jets have a new defensive coordinator. They have officially made their hire. No, it's not Wink Martindale, and no, it's not Jim Leonard. It's actually Brian Duker for the Miami Dolphins. We all know we've been waiting for Brian Duker to get this job. He's never called plays before in his life as a defensive coach, but he did come from the Dolphins as the passing game coordinator and the defensive backs coach, and he's worked with Aaron Glenn in his previous history, so they have that similarity. Aaron Glenn's going to take over as the defensive play caller, and we're here to talk about it on today's episode of Gangs All Here. I'm Ryan Sampson. That's Frankie Vidarini from U Stadium from Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl. Frankie, how's it going down there, buddy?
It's going all right, man. It's going all right. I'm a little disappointed because some of my favorite defensive prospects in this draft are not here. David Bailey being one of them, Ruben Bain, Mr. Pons over there. So that's a little bit discouraging. On top of that, though, I got to hear about the Jets everywhere I walk around here. I mean, that's like the key thing going on at Mobile is the New York Jets. Everyone's bringing them up, cracking on us. It's a common theme, but I'm used to it at this point, right? Aren't we used to getting cracked on all the time? But yeah, it's good though, man. There's some quality players in this draft. Unfortunately, the Jets don't really have a staff in place. They just kind of are putting things together last minute. So we don't have an OC at this point. So it's a little bit interesting to say the least to think about, well, who's scouting these guys, and are these scouts going to be here when the new OC comes in? Likewise with the defensive coordinator, with Brian Duker, like you just brought up, are his coaches here? Are his scouts that he wants here? So the Jets are going to be behind the eight ball as always. So yeah, we'll see what happens though. But things are good. Things are good.
Good. I'm happy to hear. And yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer that some of the big name players like David Bailey isn't there. But I'm sure you're going to get some good contacts and info and just an understanding of some of the guys, the senior players that are going to start to emerge in this draft. But yeah, man, we have to keep talking about the Jets because they keep making news. Look, when the Jets started this process of finding their new defensive coordinator, we had talked to Kaz about, who are some leading favorites, who are some names that we should pay attention to. And then the Jets released a list of 8 names that they had talked to, including Wink Martindale, including Jim Leonard, including Chris Harris. And Brian Duker was not on the original list of 8 names, Frankie, that they announced that they made virtual interviews with. Then we get the details over the weekend that Wink Martindale was flying into Florham Park for an in-person interview. Connor Hughes from SNY was reporting that it was a done deal, that Wink Martindale was going to be the Jets' new defensive coordinator. He was going to take over play calling responsibilities on the defensive side of the ball. He was going to start assembling his staff on the defensive side of the ball because Aaron Glenn has let go of everyone pretty much on the defensive side of the ball. But then it all takes a turn because Aaron Glenn wants to call plays, and he knows that the heat is on him. And now we get word that Brian Duker yesterday, Tuesday, gets a virtual interview, Frankie. Now, the Jets were already Rooney Rule compliant by doing their 2 minority interviews, and now they interview Brian Duker on Tuesday, and not even 24 hours later, they name him as the new defensive coordinator, a guy, again, who I have to tell you, has not called a play as a defensive coordinator in the NFL. Now, he's not going to have play calling responsibilities here. He's obviously got the chemistry with Aaron Glenn and working with him in Detroit over a couple of years, and they have that symmetry together. And Aaron Glenn's going to be calling this defense. It will be his defense. Don't get me wrong. So that's my takeaway from this is how the heck did we go from 8 candidates to Wink Martindale's getting the job to Aaron Glenn's calling the plays, and now within a 24-hour span, Brian Duker is now the new defensive coordinator.
Yeah, man. I don't really know what to say about this whole process. It feels like the Jets are scrambling. Feels like they're trying to figure things out as they go. It feels like they're changing their minds quite often here. Wink Martindale clearly wants to call plays. He's got the experience. So I don't know where that disconnect happened, where Aaron Glenn all of a sudden thought that, now I'm going to call plays. This is my new idea in mind. What do you think about that, Wink? Wink probably told him, to go F off when he proposed that. And I had assumed that before that Connor report even came out, Ryan. I assumed that was what happened originally, because I know that people had speculated, oh, well, maybe uh, Glenn doesn't have the pockets right now via Woody to pay a new DC and a new offensive coordinator. I didn't believe that to begin with.
No, I mean, if you
I never
believe
believed that
Connor's
part of it.
report, they had the deal done with Wink. They were going to sign
Yep.
him, so they're willing to pay his contract.
Definitely. Yeah. But it came down to play calling duties. Now, that's not encouraging to me, because I really don't think Aaron Glenn's a better play caller as a defensive coordinator than Wink Martindale. I'll just keep it, 100. Like, I really don't believe that at all. But on the other side, I do like that Aaron Glenn is taking some accountability on himself and not playing this, oh, I'm the CEO, I'm going to be hands off, I'm going to let the defensive coach run the defense and the offensive coach run the offense, and I'm not going to do anything, and just kind of this whole this whole team, and I'm going to be the bridge to everything here. That's not what I think we need here. I think we need somebody that has some X's and O's capabilities of running this team, and we'll see what Aaron Glenn's about this year. I have all the doubts in the world. I had all the doubts in the world before we officially hired this guy, when he was being rumored to be our coach, because I never trusted his X's and O's acumen. And if you go to what Rich Cimini recently brought up, that wasn't part of why the Jets hired Aaron Glenn. That whole process was a bit, I don't want to call it a sham, but the thought process in terms of why they wanted Glenn here was about leadership, and was about his ability to be a CEO, a leader of men. Well, now we'll see what you can do as a defensive coordinator, which is basically what you're going to be doing for the most part. This guy, Brian Duker, he's young. He's 36 years old, doesn't have much experience. I can read you some of the numbers if you'd like about what he did in Miami.
Sure.
They're not too encouraging. So last year they were 18th in pass yards allowed. I'm going to go by the secondary standard, so by the through what D-backs did. They were bottom 10 in the league with 9 interceptions. They were 23rd.
That's an improvement over 0, my friend.
That is true. Yes, that's
pew,
zero
pew,
versus
pew, pew,
9's
pew.
a big difference. They were 23rd in PFF coverage grade, which is also bottom 10. Then in 2024, they were 9th best in the league at pass yards allowed, which was actually pretty good. Obviously, they were top 10 in pass yards allowed, but they were bottom 10 with 10 interceptions on the year. And 25th or bottom 10 also with in terms of PFF grade. So listen, it's not the most glamorous resume right there. I will say, though, he did seem to hold some things together coming from 2024 to 2025, because in 2024, if you remember, the Dolphins got rid of their entire secondary.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey was traded, Kendall Fuller release. They had Cater was out for the season with an injury. Javon Holland left in free agency, and Jordan Poyer was a free agent. So they were 18th the next year after being 9th, but the turnovers, he's not very aggressive there. I know they did some things in Detroit that they really liked with him, specifically in the turnover department and with Glenn, but this is just who wants to take this job kind of thing. Who's the last person standing out there, and here's a job.
I think we talked about it before. If we believe reports, Aaron Glenn wanted to take over play calling responsibilities on a dime, flipped on a dime, and that's kind of been I think symbolic of Aaron Glenn's tenure here as a Jets head coach. It flips on a dime with him. He's never consistent in what his approach is, whether it's hiring a coach or coaching staff, whether it's running how he's going to run the offense with his offensive coordinator, whether it's who is going to be his quarterback and starting every week, whether it's his messaging to the fans for the season-long perspective. He flips everything on a dime because he just never stays true and consistent in what he's doing. And that to me is a sign of a leader who doesn't really have a clue in what he's doing. And it makes you wonder, why are the Jets prolonging the thing that we all know is inevitable? which is Aaron Glenn is not long for this job. He is in over his head. He's shown that he cannot handle a professional franchise as a head coach. The team is coming off a record-setting season from hell that has been one of the worst for fans to ever watch. And you didn't have any interceptions as a defensive coach. Your defense was god-awful towards the end of the season, no matter how you want to paint it, if you were tanking or not, which they'll never admit to. So for him to now go in this mindset of, yeah, Wink, I want you to call the plays because I'm going to continue to be that Bill Parcells type. I want to be the CEO of this entire team and have my hands in the offense, the defense, the special teams, all of it. But then you flip on a dime. And now all of a sudden you're saying to Wink, actually, you know what? I'm going to call the plays. I'll still have you as defensive coordinator if you want. No, why would I want to do that? So like you said, who's going to take that job? Why would Jim Leonard want to come here now? If he's not going to call the plays, he'll take his name out of the hat. It's the same exact thing that happened with Tanner Engstrand. As soon as the Jets said to him, Tanner, look, we want to keep you on the staff, but we're actually going to take play calling responsibilities away from you. What? Why? What has changed here? So I think this really...
I have an answer for you.
Go ahead.
I have a simple answer. I know exactly what they're doing, and it's really stupid, but I know exactly what they're doing. Aaron Glenn's trying to put together a coaching staff that's going to give him the best chance to win maybe 7 or 8 games and keep his job for year 3. That's what he's doing. There is no forward thinking here, because you can convince me that Frank Reich, for example, if they're going to hire him as their offensive coordinator, is better in a 1-year window than Tanner Engstrand. I might believe you there due to the experience variable. Might make some sense. But long-term, awful idea. Awful, because you don't know what the upside is with Tanner. Same thing goes here, man. I think with Glenn wanting to call plays, he wants to put himself in a position where he wants to keep his job. And the best way, in his opinion, he's going to keep his job is get the old minds in here that have done this, and say what you want about him as a defensive coordinator. Him calling plays is in the same category as Wink Martindale calling plays.
Yeah.
Frank Reich calling plays is like him calling plays on defense. These are just old school guys that they know what they're doing. Nothing new, nothing creative, nothing that long term is going to be interesting or something you're going to look at and build off of. But it might give you that 7 or 8 games that might be enough to keep your job.
It's an interesting thought. I don't think this team is good enough to win 7 or 8 games, though, Frankie.
I don't think so either.
They're going to have an incredible offseason, nail these 2 picks in the first round, and somehow find a quarterback that's going to help them win 7 or 8 games, because there's no quarterback on the roster right now. There isn't. So it's a mighty task to ask this team to win 7 or 8 games. Where they're going, in my opinion, is they're heading fast and furious to an 0-16, 0-17 type season. Because if you look at the history, there's only one other coach in the history of the NFL, Frankie, that fires his offensive and defensive coordinator after 1 year. After the first year in their tenure, going into the second season and getting to hire a new offensive coordinator and defense coordinator. It's Hugh Jackson. You know what happened to Hugh Jackson in the second season? They went 0-16 with the Browns.
He actually survived the 3rd year.
That is the trajectory we are talking about, though, Frankie. Think about
right.
that. This coach is so lost. And for him to kind of put this macho man bravado messaging that I don't care what the media, I don't care what the fans, the content creators, the critics, I don't care what any of them think. It's so unbelievable that this Jets franchise continues to put its foot in its own mouth and do things that are so backwards. And this is something Aaron Glenn released in a statement on the news that Brian Duker was being hired. I can't believe that's his name, Brian Duker, being hired as the defensive coordinator. During our time in Detroit, Brian consistently demonstrated a high football acumen and an aggressive approach to defense. I'm confident that his energy and knowledge of the game will help elevate our players and push this team forward. Dude, nobody knows anything about this guy besides what Frankie had to do some deep diving on some PFF numbers on how the secondary did for the Dolphins. By all means, Anthony Weaver was the guy that was really the head of that defense on those staff. Like, it just... This is an uninspiring hire. Aaron Glenn is getting all the pressure now to make this defense work because he's taking over as the play caller. And ultimately, Frankie, I think he knows he's on the hot seat, and like you said, he has to win some football games in this next year. I just don't see it currently as constituted with this roster and this quote unquote coaching staff that he's building. I don't see them winning many football games this year.
Let me ask you something. They did a virtual interview with this guy last night, right? Yep. You hire him the next day without even meeting in person.
Who's going to take the job if they're not calling the plays?
That's
Frankie?
What I'm saying. Ryan, and I'm not saying this to be negative or to play into any agenda or narrative here. This situation right now that I'm seeing with the 2026 Jets is as bad as not only I've seen, that's for sure. It's as bad as you can get. It's to the point where, and I tweeted this a few days ago or maybe a week ago. I don't even know. The days are just flying by in January. I tweeted and said, you know what I would do if I was the Jets? I go deep into the college ranks and I'd look for coaches in those ranks, because you are going to get as bottom of the barrel candidates at the NFL level as you can possibly imagine. This guy being one of them. Now, I don't know if this guy's going to be a good or bad coach, right? Brian Duker. I like that he's 36. He's not a dinosaur. Maybe he's got some fresh new ideas. I have no idea. Nobody does. I don't even think people that have worked with him do. I don't know if his family, his best friends even know what kind of mind this guy is. He's so young in this whole thing. And so amateur, I'd say. But Ryan, they got to get so damn lucky. And like you just said, everything they do, they're always playing behind the 8 ball. It's like saying, oh, I'm going to try to, beat people in one-on-one basketball. I'm not that good. I'm also going to play with a hand tied behind my back. That's what the Jets are doing. Everything they're doing is with a hand tied behind their back. And they're not good anyway. And they're not athletic. And they're not tall. And they don't have a good jump shot. And they're not quick. Oh, but I'm also going to play with a hand tied behind my back. You know who needs to step in? And this should have happened from day one. The owner should have stepped in and said, listen, Aaron, enough of whatever you're trying to do. When Steve Wilkes was going to get fired, we spoke about it. Stop. Finish the season. Why? We said this during one of our shows, Ryan. Who's going to want to take this job when you fired your DC to do what? There's 3 games left. And the defense looked worse after. Right? Didn't it? It was historically bad the last 3 games. They gave up over 100 points. You got to stop. Leave Tanner alone. He's got something. Stop. Don't fire Wilkes. Stop. The positional coaches they fired. Why are you firing these guys if you're going to bring in a new coordinator anyway? They're going to want to get rid of these guys anyway. Optics matter. Optics matter. You see, there's really no respect around the league for the Jets and the owner. There's none. You see, John Gruden was offered apparently a position.
What a joke.
He went and he leaked that real quick. There's got to be, if you want respect around the league, and this isn't directly to the owner, but it's just the Jets in general. It's everyone up there. They need to just do things in the right way from an optic standpoint. That's professional. It's unprofessional to fire Wilkes with 3 games left in the season, a month left. It's unprofessional to fire all these positional coaches when you don't have a coordinator anyway. The coordinator's going to fire them. Hire the coordinator, then you can get rid of the positional coaches depending upon who they want. Right? Isn't that the right way to do business?
Listen,
or am I like
you could say the right way to do business. How about the prime example is the offensive coordinator? 3 weeks after the season's over, you fire him. And that's because you want to take away play calling responsibilities on a guy who got no fair chance in his first year as a play caller. You're talking about Justin Fields, who's terrible, Tyrod Taylor, who's often hurt,
it's pathetic,
and Brady Cook, who's an undrafted rookie quarterback.
And he won a few games with Tyrod Taylor, mind you.
But think about this, though. You're talking about giving him the worst quarterback room in the entire NFL. That's what Aaron Glenn did. He gave Tanner Engstrand the worst quarterback room in the entire NFL.
And one of the worst wide receiver rooms, too, Rye.
But don't forget, Garrett Wilson was out since mid-October, so he had no number 1 wide receiver for the majority of the season.
Yeah.
A banged-up Breece Hall lost their number 2 running back in Braylon Allen. They had a solid offensive line.
Mason Taylor got hurt, too.
But think about this. You gave him all that for your first-time play caller on offense, and then you decide, you know what, we're going to keep you at the end of the season. actually 3 weeks from now, you know what? We should bring in a senior advisor on the offense. And we kind of want to give him play calling responsibilities and take that away from you and just have you help us kind of mold the new quarterback. What? Actually, you know what? We're
I
going to
know.
fire you. We're going to let you go because now we're going to find a new offensive coordinator. And now we have to go through the Rooney rule because we have to be compliant there too, which will delay the process even more, even if you wanted to hire Frank Reich right now.
Yep.
It is so ass backwards in how the Jets have run everything, and that all falls under Aaron Glenn. But look, man, Woody Johnson, yeah, you could critique him all you want. He's the most dysfunctional owner in all sports. It's not even close. Right now, it's not even close. You could argue the Browns if you want because no one wants to take that job either. I know they got Todd Monken today. But honestly, Woody is under he deserves every bit of criticism. And the Super Bowl will just be a culmination of it all if Sam Darnold wins the Super Bowl because everything should fall back on Woody. Woody does not do things the right way as an NFL owner. And right now, he knows he should have fired Aaron Glenn after 1 year. And the fact that he's going to run it back with an embattled head coach who is clearly on the hot seat and is struggling to fill out this staff and doesn't know how to do it the right way, it's making an embarrassment of this team, which has already been an embarrassing team, even further.
Yeah. And you know what? Listen, if I was the Jets, you know what I would do if I could give them any advice. And I have a fucking sorry to curse, but I have a booklet of advice for the New York Jets. A book, a Bible of advice. If I had to give them one piece of advice, do not hire Frank Reich. Why? The optics are going to look bad after you do the Rooney Rule. After you're Rooney Rule compliant, then you're going to hire Reich. It makes it look like a sham. Hire one of these young guys, these new guys that nobody knows about. Do that because where are we going with Frank Reich? Where? Where is this team? They don't have a quarterback. Where's Frank? Frank Reich wasn't even calling plays when he was in Philadelphia. It wasn't he was a disaster in Indianapolis. They wanted him out of there as fast as
They
possible.
fired
Look
him
how
one
they're
year.
doing.
One year in Carolina, they fired him with Bryce Young.
Yeah, man. The Jets, if you're gonna do this and you're gonna be smart about this, you gotta hire somebody outside the box because if you end up bringing in Frank Reich and now you're going to go through just the compliance standards and then you're just going to go back to Frank Reich, it just looks bad. And I think what happened with Tanner, just a last thought on that. I think what happened with Tanner is they sat Tanner down or Tanner had been thinking about what they sat him down. They go, listen, we're going to basically take away play calling duties. This is why XYZ. And maybe Tanner was okay with it at the time. Then I think Tanner went home, spoke to people in his camp, spoke to his agent, thought about it a little bit more. And he said, you know what? Screw these people. Screw them. Kind of thought about it and then said, hey, I want a meeting. I want to know what's going on. I'm not going to accept this. Aaron Glenn probably sat there and goes, you know what? Then I guess we got to go our separate ways. Let's do this amicably. I won't fire you. You didn't step down. We'll part ways. Handshake, handshake. And that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. 100%. So it stinks because you had someone that at least was somewhat interesting in what they were trying to do, looking at all the metrics around Tanner and the creativity variables that you can get just by looking at some stuff. And it's tough to know because, again, calling plays, you have to know what the defense is calling, a factor in how well your play call is. So it's always judged versus whatever the defense is calling. But if you look at it, the separation yards that receivers were getting on average, the difference between run and passing plays when the defense was in coverages that were more favorable to runs versus passes, etc. All the metrics show that he had something. Now, I was with you towards the second half of the season, Ryan, where maybe Tanner is a really good or interesting play designer, but maybe as a play caller, he doesn't know when to run the right things at the right time. He seems to get a little confused at times as to when to run the right things. But what does that come with? That comes with experience. The second year under Tanner would have been better than the first, and I'm sure the third would have been better than the second. And that's what you do when you're developing coaches. Now we're not developing coaches right now. We're deciding that we're going to go with these old dinosaurs like Frank Reich, and we were looking at Wink Martindale, and it would have been him if Glenn didn't step in. But now Glenn's a DC de facto. He is. So you got Aaron Glenn, and you're going to have probably Frank Reich running this team. Why, Ryan? Why? The key here is just to win enough to keep his job in year 3. It's desperation. Yeah, it's like self-preservation mode right now for them.
In his defense, and I'll say this, he needs to be desperate, though. He needs to have control and be able to prove to Woody Johnson and the franchise that he can do the job. So good luck. I don't have faith in him. By all accounts, everything that we've seen and all the evidence that we've built up in year one, Frankie, doesn't look like the man for the job. And I continue to say that, and I will continue to reemphasize that until I am proven wrong. Aaron Glenn does not look like the man for the job, and we are just delaying the inevitable, which is unfortunate because the Jets really do have a good opportunity to rebuild this roster and reshape it with the picks that they have that are really high in this upcoming draft, the 3 first-rounders that are coming up next year. We'll see how they use those assets. Frankie, any final thoughts about the Jets hiring Brian Duker as the new defensive coordinator, even though Aaron Glenn's going to be calling the plays?
Listen, man, I want to come up with T-shirts, all right? Free Dookies, baby. Free Dookies for life. I don't know what Dookies are. Someone's got to come up with them. Someone at the New York Post.
I think we know what Dookies
we got to do
mean.
something.
It's got to be a better name than
Dookies.
Dookies. We can't do Dookies. No.
What is does Dookies mean what I think it means?
Yes, it does.
Well, then we're Jeff fans. We're used to a lot of Dookies. Yeah, that is true. I don't know. I like the name Duker. I'm a big fan of that. But no, really. To be honest, lasting thoughts. The Jets have something, and I did some research on this. We'll talk about this throughout the offseason. That 44th pick, if you pair that up, you team that up with that 16th pick, Ryan, you can get up into that top 10 range. Grab somebody at 2, grab the best defensive player, then grab the best offensive player if you need to get that 44th pick in the mix. Because if you go through the points as to what the 44th pick gets you, plus 16, you can go as high as 8, maybe 7. And if you look at teams that have gone up that high from 16, I'll give you the New Orleans Saints example. Chris Olave, they moved up the Saints from 16 to 11, giving an extra 3 and a 4th rounder. And I think the points were even less than what 11 was. So the team at 11 sort of gave them a little bit of a deal. The Jets now with 2, 16, 33, and 44, not even talking about next year's 3 first-rounders, that's where the Jets can differentiate themselves. Package 16 and 44, in my opinion. Leave 33 there. Because if you package 16 and 33, you could maybe get the 5th overall pick or 4th, by the way. So the Jets do have some assets there. Partners 16 and 44 if you need to. Move up. Draft, I would draft David Bailey. But even if you want Ruben Bain, even if you want Arvell Reese, draft one of those 3 at 2. Then move up and get one of those 3 receivers, Tate, Tyson, or Lemon. Let's go to sleep at night with the 33rd pick on day 1. We'll go to sleep at night knowing that we ended up with one of those 3 at both sides, edge or receiver. Then 33 rolls around and maybe we have an extra day to sleep on it. Maybe we trade back and gather some assets. But the Jets are in a very, very advantageous draft position this year and obviously next year with the 3 first. So that's my lasting comments there, trying to be a little bit optimistic, because it's freezing in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm by myself out here, it's just I don't know what I'm doing over here. There's no David Bailey's not here. Ruben Bain's not here. I wanted to see the edge guys. I want to see the one-on-ones. I like Romello height. I like him, but what am I doing over here, Ryan? You sent me out here, but it's unbelievable.
You're really comparing how freezing cold Mobile, Alabama is right now to the frigid Northeast that we are dealing with right now. It's going to be negative 10 tonight.
I thought I was going to Alabama. I thought it was going to be hot.
No.
And I'm freezing. And they don't have heat over here. They have space heaters everywhere because they're not used to being hot.
You poor baby.
They're not used to being cold.
First world problems down there, man. First world problems.
Yeah, you're right about that.
That's Gangs All here. Frankie giving you draft strategy on an episode where we're talking about Brian Duker.
Hey, he's got the 2nd pick.
He does now. He can give some influence on what that pick's number 2 is going to be. Look, that's Gangs All here. I'm Ryan Sampson. That's Frankie Vinariti. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button for the New York Post Sports YouTube channel. Until next time, Jets fans, we'll catch you later.